Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Inform Me Talking Small Business webinar. It's hosted by me, Sophie Cross. I'm the founder of Freelance magazine. My new co-host Will isn't here today. He's had to be at a big expo, but it means that I'm going to get our guest all to myself, which I'm delighted about. And I'd love it if you put any of your questions and comments in the chat too, and I'll put them to Gus later on. So spoiler alert, our guest today is Gus Bandel.
Hello.
Gus is a LinkedIn trainer. He's a social media specialist. He's a highly experienced marketing strategist, and he's also the founder of digital marketing agency, the M Guru. He's been in the world of marketing since the late 90s. Insert joke about not looking old enough here. And you've obviously seen a load of changes in that time. The advent of social media, the advent of LinkedIn, and now the rise of AI. So in particular, Gus has specialised in LinkedIn marketing campaigns for the last few years, and he's literally helped thousands of organisations, from sole traders to global corporations, to utilise, grow, and create sustainable success. That's a tricky thing to say. Sustainable success on the platform. I know you deliver loads of regular LinkedIn workshops and masterclasses. You work for the Chamber of Commerce, and by no means least, you have a regular LinkedIn expert column in Freelance magazine. So today the aim is that Gus is going to help us go from LinkedIn lurkers to LinkedIn legends. And I'm just really excited to geek out with you about LinkedIn today because, as you know, I really love the platform too, and our paths cross lots. We work together, we're business buds, we attend the same events, but we don't ever really get to chat for a sustained amount of time. So I'm so excited to get to chat to you today. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this. And not just because I get to spend time with you, but also because I get to teach people about LinkedIn. So yeah, it's great. Thank you so much.
I've just put, thank you. I've just put, hopefully you can see it, but I've just put our LinkedIn links in the chat. And I've also just put in there about putting in any questions. But first of all, sorry, I'm just going to try and get if anyone could pop in that they can see that chat, then if they can see those links in the chat, because I know last time they didn't work. But first of all, I wanted to ask you about Uplift Live.
Sure.
So it was last week.
Yeah.
And I haven't been to this conference, so it's a LinkedIn focused conference. I know it's just been, but I think you're already planning 2026.
Correct.
But just tell us a bit how did that go? What's your involvement with the event? I'd love to hear more about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for asking. So Uplift Live is it's a LinkedIn focused conference. So essentially, I'm running it with two guys, John Esperian and Jeremy Freeman. John Esperian is a fabulous LinkedIn trainer as well, and it was kind of like his baby. He had this idea a few years ago to get some of his global friends in a room because he's very well connected on LinkedIn. And he kind of had this idea, and then he came to me and said, "Oh, I'm thinking about running an event. Would you like to help me?" I said, "Yeah, cool." So that was about 3 years ago. So we had the first one in 2024, and we had the second one last week. And we had 200 people in the room. We ticket holders, roughly around 30 to 40% of them were international, so people came from all over the world. We had speakers from Northern Ireland, Australia, the US, Trinidad and Tobago, and a couple of others. I was the compere for the event, but I was also the speaker. But it's specifically a LinkedIn focused conference because ultimately we go to events, and I think a lot of events, particularly when it comes to social media, they try covering everything. It's like they try covering TikTok and Instagram and Google and Facebook ads and LinkedIn and et cetera, et cetera. And then, you go to a conference, you pay a lot of money, and you only essentially take away kind of one or two items. So we thought, if you're really interested in LinkedIn, let's just have a whole conference just about LinkedIn. And it's a real deep dive as well. It's none of this, have a nice profile picture and all that kind of stuff. It's a proper deep dive into LinkedIn. So yeah, it was great. And yeah, we're doing it again next year, 26.
I thought I put the link in the chat, but I don't think the link is working for me. The chat is working for me.
Not sorry. If you Google Uplift Live, you'll see everything.
But we can also add, we're making show notes of this and sending a key takeaways email to everyone that's joining afterwards. So we'll pop all that in there. Yeah, because I think, one of the first things, or, the things we get told over and over again, and is so, hard to stick to, is focus on one channel, or focus on one social media channel. And absolutely, my experience is that for small businesses and freelancers, that it is really, really rare if LinkedIn isn't going to be that best channel for you nowadays, with, especially if you're doing sort of B2B, business to business marketing. It's the number one marketing channel, not just social media channel, that I see everyone I know really getting clients and customers from. So it's such a smart idea to have something that's just totally focused on that, and also go niche. Hey, well, I would love to come to that conference in 2026. And John Espirian was someone who got me into LinkedIn, actually. I think listening to his podcast on the marketing meetup, I remember I was kind of walking around a park in the pandemic, having just lost all of my clients because they were all in travel and hospitality, and listening to that podcast and having a light bulb moment. And I was going to ask you, do you remember kind of when your LinkedIn light bulb moment was?
Interesting.
If there was a light bulb moment, or, when did you kind of start realizing the potential and the power of it? Before, I mean, presumably there was a time where you were using it for a business before you became, and then decided to become a LinkedIn trainer when you were. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. I now obviously I now work in social media, but there was a time when I had a proper job. So I joined LinkedIn in 2007, and I've always used it for work. I've always used it for conversing with colleagues or clients and all that kind of stuff. But always for other businesses. So when I started my own agency in 2017, I went all in on LinkedIn, because I thought that's where I'm going to be. That's where I'm going to kind of obviously talk to people, find clients, and all the rest of it. And I think, I think my light bulb moment was in the pandemic, because up until then, it wasn't a fully fledged social media platform. People were still posting CVs and looking for jobs and all that kind of stuff. And I think in the pandemic, that's what really changed it, when people decided that they wanted to go on LinkedIn to actually have conversations, to actually use it like a fully fledged social media channel.
Sure. Yeah.
And obviously the most boring of stats is that there's currently 1.1 billion people on LinkedIn. And when the pandemic happened, there was about 650 million there or thereabouts. So, and LinkedIn started in 2002. So in the last 5 years since the pandemic, LinkedIn have added almost as many members as it did in the 18 years before that. So now, since the pandemic, we're seeing a kind of a very rapid rise, and it's basically in the top 4 social media platforms. But it is, as you said, the world's number one business-focused platform, which is what, and particularly when we come to business, it has to be in your top 2 channels that you use for marketing, basically.
Yeah, the pandemic really kind of gave it that pivot away from just being a CV site, didn't it? And I know, people are still kind of catching up with that a little bit, but I really remember, I looked at my LinkedIn post before that, and I was I'd maybe write a blog and I'd just post a link, and it would kind of come up as the picture, and I was thinking, and I'd maybe get 1 or 2 clicks. And it's well, it's obvious why people aren't engaging with this, because I'm not actually making it engaging in any way. So I think the pandemic really kind of made people realize, I can kind of use it like Facebook for business, and we can really grow networks on there, and find our tribes and things like that. So what would be, if you're just getting started, and I suppose typically I find that people kind of have around 500 connections when they start before they start using it quite proactively. And they might be, the classic thing is, I guess, to kind of share if they're working for a company, or, when there's a new job, a new job vacancy or things like that. And that's kind of the safest way people use it, isn't it? And they kind of don't comment on things, and they don't, they lurk and they listen. But what would be your like kind of advice for the first steps to take if you're kind of at that stage at the moment?
The two easiest steps would be, the first one would be to optimize your profile to make sure, and it sounds very, for the most part, it sounds very obvious, like have a nice profile picture and make sure your headline says what you do and all that kind of stuff. But actually, think about your profile as a website. So search engine optimized. So make sure your profile is covered in keywords. Because one of those things is it obviously helps to bring people in. If people are searching, etc., they kind of come across your profile, etc. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing is LinkedIn is the only place where you get to curate the perfect audience. There's a search box and you can essentially search for whoever you want. So whatever you do for a living, think about your ideal clients and then bring those people to you. So I work with service sector businesses. So accountants, HR, photographers, videographers, coaches, consultants, that kind of stuff. So they're the people I search for. So they're the people I bring into my world. So I connect to them. And then obviously the third step, when you're ready to go for that third step, is to create content that they would want to read. So the first step would be to optimize your profile and make sure it's covered in keywords of what you do for a living. And the second one would be to start building your audience. In essence, start building your tribe, basically.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. I think that even um, having used LinkedIn for years and years, we kind of forget about that power of, like a lot of people forget about that power of search.
Mm.
And, another thing that I've heard talk about a lot, and I'm certainly have been guilty of it, is uh, sort of focusing on creating content for your peers,
Mm. Yeah,
and maybe not for your ideal clients,
yeah.
because it's kind of easier, isn't it? And it's same with networking in person. It's easier to go to events with your peers than it is to go and sell yourself to your clients. So, yeah, I think that is really interesting in terms of making sure the most of the posts that you're seeing and the content you're creating is for, to get business.
Mm.
What do you do cold outreach, like cold connection outreach to people, and what would that look like?
So I'm very lucky that in my business I haven't had to do too much cold outreach. But having said that, so it's that, I get a lot of inbound leads via LinkedIn, and I think that the reason for that is because of the way that I use LinkedIn. If I had to do cold outreach, or in the times when I have done cold outreach in the past, etc., you have to, for want of a better phrase, you have to warm people up. And I think the
Mm,
thing is, LinkedIn users are very jaded by cold outreach because most people do it really badly. They'll connect with
mm,
you and then they'll instantly send you a pitch. Or they'll send you a DM, which basically like some sort of, they're pretending to be your friend. Like, oh, hello, how are you? How's the weather where you
yeah,
are
kind
today?
of.
By the way,
Mm,
this is what I sell, kind of thing. You just think either cut to the chase or leave me alone. Um, but actually, what I do is, so like I said, I've optimized my profile. I've curated the perfect audience, and then I create content that they want to read. And ultimately,
mm,
if we're creating content for business, it builds us up as an authority. Because one of the
mm,
other stats is less than 5% of the 1.1 billion users on LinkedIn are creating content consistently. So if they're not,
mm,
so the thing is, just by creating consistent content, as in like 1 or 2 posts per week, we fall into the top 5% of content creators on LinkedIn. And ultimately, if we're creating content, that means people are reading our content as opposed to reading content from our competitors or our peers or anything like that. So
mm,
if I was to do cold outreach, I think it's the irony is, don't make it cold. It's basically become friends with somebody because you want to, like build relationships because you want to, but then
mm,
create content that those people would want to read. Because ultimately, it's about getting people to trust us. People have to know you, like you, and trust you. And because they don't trust you as soon as you meet them, they're never going to hand over their money. It's as simple as that. So it's about building relationships.
absolutely. And I suppose just kind of this has just popped into my head in terms of the fact that a lot of people do use it to connect with their peers
Hmm.
means that if you have, a small number of people or a medium sized number of people that you're connected with that kind of say your target market is photographers, when you start creating content and interacting with those people that you're already first connections with, those people's connections are going to start seeing
Mm,
your content, aren't they? So
yeah,
that's kind of a really organic way to bring in other people that might, someone that you already connected with, a photographer you already connected with, comments on yours. Your post might then pop up in front of some of their other connections.
mm,
And if they then comment, that's a really nice way to start kind of a natural, conversation without having to kind of cold slide into someone's DMs. I think
yeah.
like just while we're on commenting, I think commenting is a bit of an underestimated um, use of LinkedIn as well, isn't it? I
Mm,
think people kind of focus on posting,
yeah.
but commenting can be really powerful, can't it?
Yeah, so I always say that LinkedIn is the world's longest and biggest networking event. And the thing is, when we post, it's very much broadcasting, right? It's basically going into a room and saying, hey, this is what I do for a living, or here's a post, or, this is what I had for dinner, or I took my dog for a walk. That's all well and
Mm,
good. But actually, the real gold is in conversations. The whole point of LinkedIn is
mm,
building relationships. And when we build relationships, the best way to build relationships is to have conversations. So when we engage with others and comment on people's posts, etc., it can actually, more often than not, be much better than posting itself. A good commenting strategy is engaging with others. So if you've curated the perfect feed of your ideal clients, you should then go and engage with your ideal clients, not just because you stay in their face, but actually because it's good relationship building. And now,
mm.
so LinkedIn have essentially acknowledged the power of commenting now, because you can now see impressions on your comments. So whereas up until recently you could only see impressions of your post, so you post and it said this many people have seen your post,
Mm,
etc. You now have comment impressions, so you can see how many
right.
people have seen your comment as well. Only on
I
desktop,
just saw
mind
that
you.
yesterday for the first time, actually, I think.
Yeah. So, and it's really, and to be honest, some of my comments reach like 10 times as many people as my posts do, interestingly. So it depends
Mm,
on who you're engaging with, what you're saying to them, etc. But like you said earlier, when you engage with others, their network starts seeing your comment. It brings more people into your world, but also
mm.
brings more people into the posters world as well. So it's basically it's two-way communication. It's reciprocal. It's helping them, but helping yourself as well. So it's making sure that our content and our comments and our conversation reach a wider audience.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this new world of AI, like I was going to ask you about kind of what you see changing on LinkedIn, over the last year or so, but I suppose one of the biggest changes we're seeing is AI created content. Um, and I suppose that, and that stat was one of my favorite stats that you said before, was that I think it's at 1% for a long time. So only 1% of people were regular content creators. And I kind of only looked to look up that stat again a few months ago,
Mm,
and I sort of still found it at 1%. But I think there probably has been a bit of a leap with AI, and now, I mean, it's still only sitting at 5%, which is just unbelievable. I think that if you
mm,
post regularly on LinkedIn, that you are, in the top, uh, you know, 1 in 20 or above of people kind of using LinkedIn.
yeah.
But I suppose how have you seen it change, and how do you feel about the kind of AI created content that we're seeing at the moment?
Um, I love AI. I think AI is a good thing. And I think it's the way people use it. If you use it ethically and powerfully, I think the thing is, it's there as an assistant to help you. What I don't enjoy seeing is people who just take the first iteration from, for example, ChatGPT and then publish it as a post, or indeed people writing god awful kind of like comments. People use AI to essentially generate comments on other people's content, etc. And often it's really obvious. And
It's
it's
almost worse in the comments, isn't it? Because you're like,
yeah.
it's either just like great post,
Mm.
or they've picked something out and it doesn't quite make sense. Almost, you're like,
Yeah, what I'm saying recently is people. So the AI tool takes something from the post and repeats it. Like, so if I write a post about, I don't know, eating ice cream, it'll say, "Oh, eating ice cream is a good thing, isn't, wonderful that the summer is here. What key takeaways have you taken from your latest ice cream?" And you just think, why, what nonsense? And you just, the thing is, I feel embarrassed for the people that think that they need to use these tools to
Mm,
accelerate their business. Like it's just and I think the worst thing is if AI is used badly, it's actually detrimental to you, your personal brand, your business brand, etc., etc. So yeah, we have to be very
mm.
careful with how we use AI.
So can you give us a bit of an insight into like how are you personally using AI?
So for me, it's particularly when I use, for example, ChatGPT or Perplexity or kind of Claude or any other tools, etc. It's more of um, I treat AI like an assistant. So I'll say, right, I'm going to write a post about this. Can you give me some ideas around it, etc. And then I'll kind of
Yeah, have a
follow up with,
conversation with them.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, what are people online asking for, or what do they, what would be the key takeaways of this, etc., etc. And then I can go away and kind of write a post about it. What I will say though is, this is normally for long form content. So, for example, if it's for LinkedIn articles, LinkedIn newsletters, etc., etc. When it actually comes to posting, a lot of my posts are not necessarily off the cuff, but they're thought about kind of in terms of they're a moment in time, if you know what I mean. For example, oh, I ran a LinkedIn conference, or I've got this speaking gig, or I'm doing a fabulous webinar with the fabulous Sophie, or something along those lines. I don't need Chat GPT for any of that kind of stuff.
Mm,
So you have to when it comes to teaching others and learning what an audience would want, then that's where I kind of use kind of AI, etc. But what I definitely don't do is copy and paste any of the stuff on AI to then publish into an article or a newsletter or a post or anything like that, etc. It's just I use it for ideas and kind of back and forth, because quite frankly I'm a company of one, right? So there's any you know otherwise I have to talk to my wife, and she's quite frankly saying, please leave me alone because I've got a proper job, so I'm busy. So
mm.
I use AI for that.
We've just had a question in the chat,
Cool.
and I think it was about something I was about to ask. I'm just going to read it out live without having read it first, so
Sure.
bear with me. Interested to know, this is from Karen. If only 5% of people are posting regularly and there are a lot of lurkers who see your content and don't engage, how can you build relationships with your ideal clients when people are either not posting or lurking? Very good question. Any tips? Thank you.
So yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question, Karen. I think particularly if people ultimately people are lurking. So there's 1.1 billion people on LinkedIn, and 5% of them are creating content, roughly there or thereabouts, depending on how you kind of manipulate the figures. But most people are scrollers, they're lurkers, they're people that are hanging around. So they'll still see your content. The point is, if you're not creating content, somebody else is. So there is never an empty LinkedIn feed. That's the important thing. So if
Mm,
people have taken the time to connect to you, etc., when they're scrolling, they will see your content. And sometimes it's about how you attribute stuff. So, for example, I might see a post on LinkedIn, and then I think, oh, actually, I'm going to go to their website, and then I look at their website because they do Facebook ads. Then all of a sudden, I get an advert on Facebook, and then I think, oh, they've got a physical shop. I go to the shop and I buy something, and the person in the
mm,
shop thinks, oh, this person has just walked in. When really, there's so much more attribution. So sometimes people will see your post on LinkedIn and then go elsewhere to make decisions, etc. Because I think if you're posting, then it's all about you letting your ideal clients do their due diligence. What
mm,
Where the issue lies is if you're connecting to people that don't use LinkedIn at all. So it's what I normally do is I do my due diligence in terms of when were they last on LinkedIn, have they commented on anything, have they posted anything, etc. If it looks like their profile is empty and they haven't done anything, they haven't commented, etc. I essentially I don't connect to them because I know they're not going to be good for my audience, because there's no point having a
mm,
massive audience of people that quite frankly just don't pick up their phone. So there are a lot of people that they might like here and there, or they might comment here and there, but actually it's for the people that are in your audience that are seeing your content but not necessarily engaging with it, because not everybody does, right? I think it's a hangover of TikTok, basically. I think lots of people scroll TikTok, but how often do you find yourself liking or commenting, oh, that's a great onesie
yeah.
that you're dancing in? Nobody does that. It's,
But
so,
you might be clicking on external links, right?
mm,
So it's kind of either making sure that you're curating your followers and connections so that people you are connected with people that are using it,
mm,
or um yeah, I mean, it's really unlikely, isn't it, that someone's going to see your post, comment on it, like it, and then put in a client inquiry. Like
Mm.
you have to play the long game and short, medium term and long game. So actually it's about you being top of mind when that person is ready to make a buying decision
Yeah.
or whatever, a book a workshop or do something like that. And actually that they might not ever post on LinkedIn or like a post or comment on a post.
Mm.
But in a year's time when, they want to book a LinkedIn workshop, they're going to come to your website and fill in the inquiry form on your website because that's,
Yeah.
and that's something that they do. And I think that we don't think about that kind of funnel enough. I think I hear lots of people saying, "Oh, I feel weird looking at people's profiles," or "I feel, weird that other people." Like, I don't ever check, to be honest. I'm kind of leave all of this. I never check who subscribes for emails, who unsubscribes for emails, who gets the magazine, who cancels the magazine. I just think like that is not that's not information I need to know. And I never kind of look at who looks at my profile, and maybe sometimes that would be useful, but then I kind of think that almost gets to a weird bit if you find someone looking at your profile and then you contact them and say, hey, you've been looking at my profile. But surely this is the point. We want to drive people to our profiles, right? And it's about either from a post or from a comment or from someone else tagging you maybe and saying, oh, this, like, Sophie might like this. Someone clicking on your profile, you want them to find out more about you. You want them to maybe send you a connection request. You maybe want them to send you a DM because they've seen something on your profile that resonates with them so much.
Yeah.
Or they're finding you through keywords and they're landing on your profile this way. But I think, that's why I think things like commenting are so powerful, and also thinking about what your headline is and how that headline appears when you're commenting.
Yeah.
Because you want to really kind of create that intrigue that, the ultimate goal is, to get a client, isn't it? But in the process, you need to that's probably going to be via your profile.
Yeah.
And then, it might not be that they click instantly on the website, on your website, on your profile, but there needs to kind of be a clear call to action or a clear place to send them after that.
Absolutely. I think that particularly the 2 points there, I think profile viewers, I always contact people that view my profile. So there are three types of people that view my profile. There's competitors, friends, and ideal clients. Now, friends are people that I've met through networking or met at events, or, we go to conferences, we go to events, I have speaking gigs, this webinar, etc. People want to contact me via this. Great. I will connect. Competitors, I usually ignore competitors, people who are checking out my profile, because obviously either they're interested in what I'm doing or they want to copy something or something along those lines. And I don't mean that in an arrogant sense. It's just this is the way life works, right? But the third one is the ideal clients. Now, particularly, what I do is I go through all the people that have viewed my profile, and those that would fit an ideal client or ideal supplier profile. So if somebody is selling something that I might need, or if they have a service that I could offer LinkedIn training to, I would connect to that person. And quite frankly, if somebody's viewed my profile, then technically they're a warm lead, because I just send them a message and say, hey, I'd like to connect with you because I saw that you viewed my profile. I viewed yours in return, and I think we'd be a good match. I don't say it like that. I don't say a good match. That sounds weird. But it's that element of, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? There's 1.1 billion people on LinkedIn, and they can simply say, no, I'd rather not connect to you. I viewed your profile, I looked around, and I thought, actually, I don't like you, and I'm going to move on. Fine, that's, I'll find somebody else. Don't worry. So it can be awkward, but frankly, people are viewing your profile. The point they're viewing their profile is because either they've come to you through feed, as in they found you on the feed, either somebody else has commented on your content, or they're literally searching for something that you offer. And this is why I say, keyword optimization is key along your profile to bring people to you. And then obviously the point about the headline, particularly, so that I think the headline is the most important part of LinkedIn. So if you do nothing else, change your headline. And I always talk about the headline in 4 parts, which is what, who, how, why. So what do I do for a living? How do I do it? Who do I do it for? And why should you work with me? So my what is I'm the UK's #1 LinkedIn trainer. My how is I do marketing strategy and social media marketing. The who is I work for service sector businesses, and then the why is I help you to explode your inbound leads and increase your visibility. So I tell people who I work with, so what I do, who I do it for, and like why people should work with me. So what, who, how, why. Now, the very first part of your headline should be the what, because again, the whole keyword thing, people are searching for particular things. It shouldn't really bother me, but it does because I've got too much time on my hands. What bothers me is when people start with the word helping or I help, like kind of, oh, I help time poor business owners with, and all that kind of stuff. Because of the way
Mm.
LinkedIn works, it only shows people the first part of your headline. So if you're not very clear in the first part of your headline, people are going to move on. Because quite frankly, we're human, we've got short attention spans, we're very fickle, we're just going to move on. I'm not going to look at your profile to see what the end of that sentence, it could be anything. I help time poor business owners with capturing monkeys at the zoo. I don't know what the end of that sentence is. So I just
Such
haven't
a
got
good
time.
point.
So
Yeah.
just
So
tell people straight away.
actually, I could do, I mean, probably do with putting a little bit more thought into this, but could almost do with being Freelancer magazine editor as opposed to kind of, I mean, I know it's still quite short, but like editor, you're kind of saying something straight up front, aren't you? Like
Yeah.
editor or founder of, could be of anything
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
you want to
absolutely.
kind of speak to your people.
Yeah, I normally recommend, and this is actually a John Esperian point as well. It's roughly around 50 characters or so, there or thereabouts. So the first 6 or 7 words of your headline should be very clear in kind of what you do. So um, editor at Freelance magazine, Freelancer magazine is absolutely fine, kind of thing. It's very clear that that's what you do. Um,
Mm,
Whereas if it was something like, for example, chief executive, no, yeah, like chief executive at XYZ company, etc. A job title doesn't really tell people anything. I can say I'm the
mm,
founder of the M Guru. Doesn't mean anything to anybody. People say, "Oh, what does the M
yeah.
stand for?" Or what does this agency do, or whatever. Um, so it's that kind of, it's basically it's being very explicit with telling people this is exactly what I do. So mine says LinkedIn trainer. So quite frankly, if you don't need a LinkedIn trainer, you're going to scroll on. So one of those things is it's about repelling as much as it is attracting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think marketing is, the secret to marketing really is putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right?
Mm,
Your ideal client's shoes, and thinking, what does this, how, it's really difficult to do, isn't it? When you
mm,
know what you do,
yeah,
uh, but actually it's kind of like, actually, if you pick someone else's profile and start analyzing how you found that, like, does it
mm,
make sense to you? Then actually you might be able to apply some of those lessons, like what do you like about other people's, and what, if you are buying things or, connecting with people on LinkedIn, what has driven you to do that?
mm,
And are you doing the same things
yeah,
in your marketing? Because I think that kind of brings me on nicely to, marketing really should be about other people, but we make it about ourselves, don't we? We make it about how we're, if we're feeling confident enough to do
mm,
it, and it's about putting ourselves out there.
mm,
Um, but that really, when we make it about kind of us broadcasting ourselves as opposed to us trying to help other people and what would be most useful to them, it feels really hard and it feels really difficult. And I
mm,
think that was actually because John Esperian, who we spoke about earlier, his strap line is, relentlessly helpful.
yeah,
And that was the light bulb moment for me, I think,
mm,
was how can I make my content as helpful as possible for other people? And then it
yeah,
stops feeling weird,
mm,
because I think so just if you've got the fear, you're just like, I cannot. And I think we've all been there. Like, I think if you have the fear, you think that it came naturally to everyone else. But
yeah,
really, we all, like, the first 100 times we pressed publish, like, ran and hid
yeah,
under the duvet.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's or it was just content that was incredibly boring because we thought that's what people wanted to read, etc. And actually, you make a great point because like your profile should be very clear in terms of this is what I do for a living and this is kind of what it is. However, your content, like you said, should talk to your audience. So if you are curating the perfect audience, what do they want? And so I have something which I call the fast content strategy, which is
Mm,
find the pain, agitate the pain, provide a solution, back it up with testimonials. So find, agitate, solution, testimonials. And one of the things is Most people just provide a solution. So step 3 is I'm a LinkedIn trainer. That's the solution. But to be honest, anybody can say that, or anybody can say I'm an accountant, or I work in HR, or whatever it may be. What we need to find is our ideal client's pain points. And I appreciate that's kind of a very trite kind of marketing term, but essentially, why would people come to us? Why would they use us? So the pain for my clients is they're not making money, they're not getting any engagement, their content is boring, nobody's reading their stuff, their business is going to die, etc., and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of find the pain. So your pain is you're not making any money in your business. I agitate that pain by saying you're not making any money because your content is awful, you've got no engagement, you haven't got the right audience, you haven't got a strategy, etc., etc. And then I deliver the solution and say I do LinkedIn training to appease those things. And then I'll back it up with testimonials and say, look at all these people who I've helped, and they said, I'm good at what I do, and all that kind of stuff. So when I think about, so your profile should be very clear in terms of I'm a LinkedIn trainer. You can't get away from that. But your content should talk to pain points. And I think it's a very old marketing kind of strategy, which most people don't use. Most people are too busy just telling people, this is what I do for a living. Hopefully you need it. And actually people don't know if they need it.
Yeah, and it's so important to get those foundations in place, right? I think lots of people go, right, LinkedIn, I need to post regularly. But actually, what's the strategy? What's the foundations that underpin that? And, absolutely, marketing hasn't changed. The tactics have changed, the channels have changed, but marketing hasn't changed. And I think, it's such a smart thing because it's so easy to go, I've got this to help you without, and I absolutely do it too, without kind of going this, what is the pain points? And I think that reading other people's posts or reading reviews or emails that clients have sent you with questions is such a great way to find those pain points, isn't it? When people kind of say, or they say to you, oh, I've got a quick question for you. How is it that you, have you got a cash flow forecast template or something like this? Like, then it's like, this is gold dust of things that you can then share. I'm thinking about, we've got quite a big accountancy audience. So all of those questions that you get asked by clients, they can form posts, and actually you can be really, really helpful and give loads of information away and, really position yourself as an expert. Ultimately, most of the time, people are going to want help with implementing that and help with, they're not going to kind of go, oh, I'm going to take all of this information, I'm going to do it myself. They might do bits and bobs here and there.
Yeah. And we think that, particularly like taking accountancy as an example, everybody's an accountant. Anybody could be an accountant, and it's just like all accountants do the same thing. Obviously, we know that's not true, but the point is that as business owners who don't know accountancy, we know that. And the thing is, I've got an accountant because, quite frankly, I'm not very good with numbers. I can do the stuff on Countdown, but beyond that, I'm not very good with numbers. I need to do self-assessment. It's a legal requirement that I do that kind of stuff. So I pay somebody to do that for me, and they help me throughout the year and all that kind of stuff. But that account, I could choose any accountant, just pick up the Yellow Pages or something more modern, and just look through. Oh, I need an accountant. It could be anyone. But where accountants mark themselves out is what are their specialisms, where are they based, what do they, what are their testimonials, what reviews have they got, what don't they like doing, what kind of businesses they work with, etc., etc. There's loads of different nuances of how we can separate ourselves from the people around us. Anybody can say I'm a LinkedIn trainer, but like what separates me from other LinkedIn trainers, etc. So it's all that. Same with, for example, Freelancer magazine. Lots of magazines on the shelves. You could buy Freelancer magazine, or you could buy the Radio Times, or you could buy Vogue, etc. They're all very different magazines. So then you talk about, well, actually, who's it for and what does it contain and all that kind of stuff. So when you take it up a level, so particularly anybody could say, I'm an accountant, but when you take it up a level, then that's where you attract your ideal clients.
And I loved what you said earlier, but I love this idea of repelling people as well. I think that we all kind of go, oh, I don't know if I want to do that because I don't want to put people off. But actually that is what we want to be doing, isn't it? And we want to be the dream service provider for a bunch of people, and in doing that, we're not going to be the dream service provider for absolutely everybody.
Absolutely. And the as the old cliche goes, if you try selling to everybody, you end up selling to nobody. Because
Mm,
I think particularly in the last couple of years, this has happened for many years, but particularly I've seen it more in the last couple of years. People are niching. People are not interested in generalists or people that do everything, etc. Like an
mm,
accountant could do everything, but they probably only specialize in a few things. They're good at everything, but they specialize in a few things. I
mm,
say I only work with service sector businesses, quite frankly, because when the couple of times I've worked with product based businesses, I completely screwed it up. And it's a completely different marketing model. So I thought, actually, I don't want to work with product based businesses. I know lots of e-com and product specialists, so I can direct
mm.
people elsewhere. So if we niche as far as we can, it's good for our audience, it's good for our ideal clients, because what we're doing is we're picking people. So in terms of the freelancer community, there are people that do podcasts or marketing or social media or Facebook ads or Google ads or etc. Everybody has a specialism, and it's much better
Mm.
to get a bunch of specialists than one person that does everything average. And that's not what our ideal clients want. So I could say I'm average at a lot of things. I've got to be honest. My wife will tell you that as well. But um, I'm brilliant at LinkedIn training. So that's the bit that I deliver. And I think that's in any industry, that's the bit that you have to talk about what your niche is and why you're brilliant at it.
Yeah, and it's about kind of following that intuition, and sometimes it can take a few years, and sometimes you
Mm,
can just keep evolving, right? First of all, you need to work out what it is that you do best and you
mm,
enjoy the most and you're excited about, if that isn't a step too far,
mm.
before you can start selling that to other people.
Yeah.
It's probably also a good time to sort of mention that people work with people they like.
Mm,
So, as well as being able to differentiate between, whether your niche is your service or the skills you offer or the service, the services you offer or the industries that you specialize in or location based. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. um, Another way to differentiate is by being yourself,
mm.
right? And showing those
100%.
aspects of your personality. And I suppose a lot of people wonder where that line is. And I know it's quite hard to say, isn't it? But I know that you use storytelling quite a lot
Mm.
to make some more engaging posts and give people a bit more of an insight into your personality. But can you
Yeah,
just tell us a bit more about those sort of posts and how you
sure.
can differentiate in that way?
Absolutely. The My oldest client, as in the client that's been with me the longest, um, he he always tells people, and he always tells me as well. He says, "I never knew how good you were. I chose you because I like you." And it's fascinating. And obviously, thankfully, he's my kind of longest serving client, so I haven't ever let him. No, I'm sure I've let him down, but I haven't let him down. Kind of like enough for him to leave me. However, it's exactly that point. People, the stories that I create gets people to like me. They get to know me, and they get to like me, and hopefully, over time, they get to trust me. And the thing is, there's a fine line between personal and personable, and I always err on the side of personable. For example, I never write content about my wife or my kid. For example, that's not necessarily for public consumption. I make a few jokes, kind of in about my wife and my kid in these kind of calls, but I don't talk about
Mm,
them publicly. I don't share photos of them or anything like that, etc. But what I do, I talk about, I don't know, what I had for dinner last night, or a networking event that I went to, or a new client testimonial I've got, or the fact that I've got a column in the Freelancer magazine, or the fact that I've got a new client, or whatever it may be. There's all that personable stuff that is so much more than simply saying, "This is what I do for a living. Please buy my stuff." Because there's so much
mm,
more. I go to a lot of conferences. I go to a lot of events. I get the occasional testimonial. I go networking. I meet people. Whatever it may be. There's all different strands to our lives that we should talk about, which marks us out differently. And I know earlier we
mm,
talked about AI. AI can't do this kind of stuff. When we start talking about our lives, the only person that has our lived experience is us. So when I say,
mm,
right, Monday I met a client, Tuesday I got a new testimonial, Wednesday I went networking, Thursday I bought pizza for everybody in the office, etc. The only person that can write that content is me. And then what it does
mm,
is it resonates with an audience. So I talk a lot about
mm,
orange chocolate. I talk about enjoying doner kebabs. I talk about the fact that I'm a Liverpool FC fan and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, people start talking about that kind of stuff as well. And what it does is it brings more people
mm.
in. So it's not like, oh, he's a LinkedIn trainer. he's a LinkedIn trainer that supports Liverpool FC, or weirdly likes doner kebabs for some reason, or or wears orange trainers, etc. So I think there's a fine line between being personal and having a personality, and I think we should demonstrate our personality because that brings more people into us.
And I think where people's boundaries are is going to differ for everyone, or the things that
Yeah.
you're going to choose to talk about, right? I mean, I know that I think whether a post does well, it is popular, and the amount of likes it get, we can debate whether that is useful for business or not. But I know some of maybe the best engagement I've had is maybe where I've posted about being in my camper van or wild swimming or things like this, and I think it is really nice to drop some of those in and just show those different elements of your personality. And I loved what you said earlier, because I always think about it like this as well, about LinkedIn kind of being the longest networking event that you're going to go to. And I think people kind of dread networking, but I think that, it makes it so much easier when you're sat at home with a cup of tea, and you can dip in and out. You don't have to like build yourself up to go to this event. It's kind of like a really nice way to practice networking, I think, and you can just dip in when you want, and there's always going to be people there. And if you see it more like that, then I think that if you see it like, how would I speak to people in real life? How would I network with people in real life? I think that's a really nice way to look at it.
Yeah, I think stuff like this is easy for me, but when I meet people in person, I'm a massive introvert. I'm the guy that will go and sit in the corner, or just get a cup of tea and just like with my back to everybody and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm on stage, or when I'm doing podcasts or webinars and all that kind of stuff, I really come out, because I know, quite frankly, this is just a chat between me and you. I have no idea if people are watching. Obviously they are, but what I mean is, it could be 10 people, it could be a million people, etc. But it's okay, because we're just having a chat. And it's the same on LinkedIn. You're just having a chat to the person that you're talking to. Don't think about that 1.1 billion people could see your comments or your DMs or anything like that. It's literally just, let's just have a chat with somebody. And I think that's the key, particularly when it comes to networking and building our business. If we're not talking, our competitors are. And I think that's the other thing as well. Our competitors are bringing people into them, because we're sitting back and lurking. So I always recommend, just, if you don't want to post, just start commenting. If you don't want to talk about your personal life, that's fine. It doesn't, it's entirely up to you how deep you go, but start creating content, that people would want to read. Because when it resonates with others, you build a tribe.
Absolutely. And I think on those points that we've just made about kind of networking and showing a bit of your personality, I know I went through a journey of kind of finding my own tone of voice on there, because I just think the natural thing to do is to write in quite a formal way. Well, it's not the natural thing to do. It's a weird process of not being able to find your own tone of voice, and then when you do start writing in your own tone of voice one day, it's like, how did I ever not do this? Because actually this is much easier to be myself. And I think kind of things like reading posts back and working out if that is actually something you would say out loud. Or writing posts, and the way you would speak it is a really you're going to engage with people much more if you say, you'll never guess what, I'm chatting to Gus tomorrow, not I'm delighted to announce that I'm chatting to Gus tomorrow. Because I would never say that.
Absolutely. Exactly. It's that thing of talk. So, for example, I say recently, kind of like about a year ago, I discovered that I use two words quite a lot: awesome and nonsense. And it's weird. And without thinking, I put them into my content. So, or if somebody writes something, I'll say, oh, that's awesome, etc. And the thing is, because I say in person, it doesn't, like, nobody's fazed by it. But when you see it in writing, you think, that sounds really weird. Like, would I say awesome? And of course I would in real life. But it's getting over that hurdle of, actually, you should just be yourself. And the thing is, what I often talk about is being intentionally yourself. So the key word is being intentional with who you are. Because everybody can be anybody can be themselves. But what we end up doing is being a filtered, diluted version of ourselves that we think others would want to see. Whereas now, if I start writing the word awesome or nonsense or whatever it may be, that's me. And quite frankly, if people don't like it, that's not really my problem, because when they meet me, I'm going to be exactly the same. So, and to be fair, in text, I enunciate better. But other than that, I think it's that case of we find ourselves, we find who we are, because again, that attracts the people that will be interested in who we are. When we start being way too formal or using language that we don't use in real life, when people then do meet us in real life, they're like, this person is completely different. If
Mm,
so that's the bit. It's basically being intentionally yourself.
yeah, that's such a good point. And repelling some people maybe because of
Mm.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's and that's fine. Like, you can't please all of the people all of the time, but what you want to do is build up a crowd of people that know you, like you, and trust you. And particularly if we go back to kind of talking about business and what that means for our business, the point is that we have people that will either become our clients, or they will talk to us. They will talk about us to people who should become our clients, etc. So it becomes a
Mm,
massive word of mouth kind of referral network as well on LinkedIn. If we're creating content that people are into and they're engaging with us on a regular basis, when somebody says, "Oh, I need a LinkedIn trainer," or etc., they'll hopefully think of me as opposed to somebody else. So I think that's the important thing. You want to, I always say, make yourself ungoogleable. Make people think of you as opposed to somebody else. You can go to Google and type in LinkedIn trainer. I'm not on the first 10 pages, but hopefully you get to know me and you see my content on LinkedIn, and we're on webinars and we meet in person at networking or conferences, etc. And then you stay
mm,
front of mind. So then you don't have to go to
mm,
Google. You just pick up the phone and say, "Gus, I need you." Basically, that's kind
mm.
of
Yeah, absolutely. So I ask everyone this on this webinar because I'm just sort of fascinated by it. But and I'm not kind of trying to test you from a sort of what does your content creation calendar look like? Like, is
yeah.
it perfect? But I mean, so what I want to ask is what practically. What does yours look like? Just because I'm sort of nosy, but also, if we can kind of go into tips for people to get started creating content or building consistency. But what do your, like, say for instance, you mentioned you get back to people who view your profile.
Hmm.
Will you check that daily? Will you check that weekly?
So
Do you have a set time every day where you think, right, I'm gonna do LinkedIn? What does it look like for you?
yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. So particularly to start with, for those people, so this is kind of advice as opposed to instruction. For
Sure.
those people that are quite early in their content creation kind of journey, what I recommend is journaling your week. So every Friday, just write a post that says, Monday I did this, Tuesday I did this, Wednesday I did this, etc. And you start getting into that habit, because you're just creating one post a week, but you're getting into the habit of consistency. And also, you're the only one that can write that post. Monday I saw a client, Tuesday I watched this webinar, Thursday, Wednesday I went out for a ride on my bike, etc. You're the only person that can write that content. So if you're quite early, create content like that, because it resonates with an audience, because they'll pick out bits like, "Oh, I rode a bike as well," or "I've got a testimonial recently," or "Oh, I went to that networking event," etc. Now, in terms of what I do, so in a week I normally spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, but then it's my day job, so that's what I do for a living. what i if I was if I had a proper job, what I would suggest is spending 15 to 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn, but bake it into your day.
Mm,
And for example, spend 5 or 10 minutes scrolling your feed and commenting on other people's content. When it resonates, if you stop and read and you like it, etc., click like, click comment, and all that kind of stuff. Comment on people's posts. So I do that kind of 5 to 10 minutes every day. I also probably spend a few minutes just searching for ideal clients. So I'll search for accountants in Coventry or whatever it may be, and I'll connect to a couple of them and bring and kind of just say, "Oh, I'd like to connect with you because of this." um, about once a week, I look at people who have viewed my profile. So maybe every Monday or every Friday, I look at people who have viewed my profile, and I'll look at the last 10 or 15 or so, and just see if any of them, I do my due diligence on all of them. And then it's the ones that I would think would fit into my network, I then connect to them. Because obviously, as we know, LinkedIn isn't about having a million followers, it's about having the right audience. Because if we're creating content for that audience, that's what we do. So, um, in terms of a week, like I said, 15 to 30 minutes a day, kind of maybe connect to one person a day. or indeed 5 people, connect to 5 people on one day, for example. Scroll your feed, I think, is the most important thing in terms of commenting on other people's content, and then just spend some time writing content. So what I do is I publish a minimum. No, I don't want to say minimum, but generally I post 3 times a week. So I found that for me, that's the optimal amount. So I normally post on, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or something along those lines. Some people post every day, other people post once a week, etc. Whatever consistency looks like, that's what I would recommend. So
Without putting too much pressure on yourself, I think, as well, isn't
yeah,
it?
absolutely. And like I said, I'm a LinkedIn trainer, I'm a social media manager, I work in marketing. I do this all day, every day. But like I said, if this wasn't my day job, I would spend roughly around 30 minutes a day. And that would kind of, like I said, connecting to new people, commenting on other people's content, and then creating my own content consistently. Like I said, even if that's once a week.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I think even if you kind of schedule some time off in your diary, or
Mm,
you get in that habit, and you habit stack by, you go, okay, well, after I've made my cup of tea in the morning, I'm
mm,
gonna spend the half an hour then, or something. I think that's such good advice, and I love the journaling advice as well.
mm,
I always say to people, don't think about what you're going to post, but kind of get out there and do cool things, or
mm,
focus on what you're doing in your business, like you're having a birthday cake for somebody, or you've gone
mm,
out for a team lunch or something, and then don't think about what you're going to post, think about what you do, and
mm.
then post about it.
Yeah.
um
Because,
and I also, sorry, go on.
sorry, no, go on, no, go on. Sorry.
No, no.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say that you're not. So, for example, when you're out in your camper van or when you go wild swimming and stuff, you don't go swimming and then think, oh, I can't wait to post about this on LinkedIn. That's not why you're doing it. You're
Yeah,
going
that's so
swimming because
true.
you enjoy swimming. And then, like, at the end of the week, you might think, oh, I want to tell people about that. And what will happen is other people say, oh, I really enjoy wild swimming, or I want to do that as well.
Mm.
Or I love to be in a camper van, or I'd love to live in France, or, I wish I could be in your magazine, and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, people start engaging with that bit. And that's the bit that brings you in. And that's the bit that separates you from, quite frankly, everybody else that does what you do.
And I love the idea, like, of having this little journal, and then if you do that daily or weekly, you can then almost have a little bit of time to mull over what it is that other people might find interesting. I like to
Mm,
kind of think about what I might post about, and then maybe take my dog for a walk, and then think, oh, actually, I could say this, this, and this. And
mm,
I think, for example, if you do go to an event like Uplift Live, I
mm.
think instead of going, oh, I attended this event, like, pictures are always more engaging if you pop pictures up of yourself for the event, but also, I know key takeaways is a bit of a businessy informal term, isn't
Mm.
it? But even though I'm about to use it in a minute and say that we're going to send you the key takeaways from this webinar,
Of course.
but it's great to say, instead of I went to this event, to say to people what you learned from that event.
Mm.
I mean, I absolutely knew this was going to happen, but it has happened, and it's now 2 minutes to do.
Okay.
I don't know where that time has gone. I think we've talked about so much. I hope people have found it really helpful, because I think it's been absolutely amazing. Um, I guess I don't want to put you on the spot, but I was going to ask you about maybe a little key takeaway, or key takeaway that came from Uplift for you. I know that I've seen some bantered around the internet. I saw that someone said, Mark Masters, saying that people are now putting little brackets around URLs, like around one of their little full
Yeah,
stops on URL.
there was something that John Esperian said in terms of handcuffing. So when you post links on LinkedIn, that content normally gets lower engagement because LinkedIn doesn't like people being sent away to external URL. So what a lot of people do is like the dot. So for example, uplift-live.com, the dot you put in brackets. So although it's not a
Mm,
clickable link, people know just to copy and paste the link, take away the brackets, and that's the link, if that makes sense.
mm,
So that was a great takeaway. I think one of my other kind of key takeaways is, so particularly from a guy called Juma Bannister, who came over from Trinidad and Tobago. Part of his talk was, let's create longer videos on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn are currently pushing short form video, but it's
mm,
very TikTok style. And actually now they've taken away the video feed. I think long form
mm.
videos is going to come back. And I think that the point is that people are interested in long videos where and when I say long, I'm talking about like 10 minutes as opposed to 6 hours. but 10-minute videos of you teaching people stuff because people are interested in, if you're an authority in what you do and you're teaching people good stuff, they will listen.
Yeah, video content will really stand out, won't it?
Hmm.
In the last 30 seconds, because I don't want to run over in case people have got to shoot off, something I should have asked you before and I've just seen is in the chat from Ralph or maybe Rafe, if it's someone who came from our community. What about LinkedIn Premium? Is it worth it? Presumably you have it if you're seeing these profile views, and this is
Yes. So very quickly, I would recommend forget premium. It's nonsense.
it is
Awesome. So what I would suggest is stick with free and do everything you do on free. And when you have exhausted all the free options, move straight to Sales Navigator. So premium is £40 a month. Sales Navigator is £80 a month. But Sales Navigator, you get everything in premium plus the lead generation tool. Premium just gives you like a nice little gold badge. You can see who viewed your profile and stuff. Whereas Sales Navigator gives you so much more. It's a lead generation tool to really curate the perfect audience. So I would say, if you're going to pay, give premium a miss and go straight to Sales Navigator.
So maximizing free first. Don't kind of jump onto. Don't think you're going to be getting loads of benefits from LinkedIn if you're not kind of already doing the basics of updating your profile. And I think that's another good thing that you can kind of build into that half an hour a day is like if it does need updating, doing a little bit every day. And also checking it because you can kind of do it and then forget that you've got out of date stuff on there. There have been so many tips in this. We're gonna send all of them out in a key takeaways. I feel like I want to change that term. Key takeaways email. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the nice comments in the chat as well. So everybody that's watching as well. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. You've really invigorated my. I love LinkedIn already, but it's hard to keep it consistent always, isn't it? But yeah, you've really helped me kind of. I hope that's happened for everyone else as well. We'll also be sending out an invite to the next webinar, which is in May. It's going to be Angela Lyons who's coming on, and she's going to talk about. She has started a podcast this year. She started an event this year, and she's got her own business. The theme is going to be starting something. And that's going to be a really awesome one too.
If I could just add that Angela is one of my most favorite people in the world. So I'm really looking forward to that already.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Gus. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming. And see you at the next one, hopefully.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.